Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Pete Novara, and I'm the co-founder of iAcademia. iAcademia is a provider of CPD courses, learning management system, and educational contents for grades 7 to 10 in the Philippines. Today, we are presenting Creating Your Own Blended Learning Strategy, the journey to adaptable type of blended learning, and will be presented by Sir Rayneth Renan Mata. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. So if you got questions during presentation, please type them into the chat box in our WebEx control panel. Then I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have time for questions at the end. Certificates will be provided after the webinar. An attendance form will be posted on our Facebook page and in the chat box. In terms of recordings will be sent out to 100 participants who are watching and will be shared in our Facebook page. There will be no certificates to those who have not watched our Facebook Live during the actual event and those who have not been able to attend in the meeting. Attendance forms will be available during the webinar and for a maximum of 1 hour after the Facebook Live. So please be patient for the recordings and certificates, as this will be sent in few hours or days. So now I'm going to introduce our speaker for today. We have Mr. Rayneth Renan Mata. He is a hardworking regional and division teacher and trainer, and for 9 years, he has dedicated his life for promoting new trends in teaching, specifically science. Please be patient for the recordings and certificates. So, sir, I will turn you over now, and so you can start presentation. Here, he has dedicated his life for promoting new trends in teaching, specifically science. Be patient for the certificate. So, sir, I will turn you over now, and so you can start presentation. Here, he has dedicated his life for promoting new trends in teaching.
Our webinar today. And we will try to at least attempt to create authentic and adaptable learning, blended learning strategies or lesson for us to at least reflect. I think we have at least 2 months to prepare. And I think this is quite timely for us to at least give ample time for us to prepare and create our own lesson in, of course, blended learning format. So the topic of my discussion is all about creating your own blended learning strategy, the journey of AATBL. I I just created the term AATBL simply because it connotes to authentic and adaptable type of blended learning. Recall in my first webinar, it is not wrong to create your own blended learning strategy. In the blended learning approach, we are encouraged to create our own way of using or maximizing the best components or the best practices in all the components of the learning approach. To begin with, let's recall what is blended learning. So I'll be presenting you my former slides with regarding to this. Now, according to James Lauren of 2011, blended learning is the combination of face-to-face learning, or in other terms, the brick and mortar classroom. It is the combination of the face-to-face learning, self-paced learning for students, and of course, the online or the digital learning. Let's recall the components. The components of such are divided into three. We have what we call the learning environment component, which I think some of us already encountered the term synchronous, which we connote as um, learning at the same place at the same time, whether that is online or actually inside the classroom. We have what we call a synchronous type of environment, wherein the students are in their self-paced learning. They're learning at different places and different time. We also have one of the component is the instructional component, wherein we are tapping the term interactivity, in which we must create instructional materials that interacts with both synchronous and asynchronous type of learning environment. So later on, I'll be presenting or showing to you the module of academia. It is very, very important for us to choose the right instructional material that can adapt to synchronous and asynchronous type of learning environment. And of course, its media component. In the media component part, we're looking at the synchronicity to the learning environment, whether that media platform can be best fit to synchronous type or to asynchronous type. Now let's go back to the basic to the blending models, or the common learning models we have right now. So as you can see, the blended learning,
Excuse
the
po,
blended learning, yes po.
sir, there is no presentation. We can see the presentation.
Okay.
We can see the presentation.
Sorry.
We can see the presentation, sir.
Share na lang po itong ano, sir, ninyo. Yan.
Yes
Ayan.
po, yes po.
Ayan. Okay, sorry. So in the blended learning model, ayan. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Now, there are four common types of blended learning models. What we call the rotation model, which is one of the most common that's happening inside the classroom. We have the flex model, the self-blend model, and the enriched virtual model. I will not anymore put this into detail because this is already been discussed in the past webinar last week. What I'm trying to point out in this webinar is that we would like to choose, or we will choose one, two, or three types of specific learning model, blended learning models that can adapt to our present situation. But before that, let's go first to the objective. The objectives are as follows. Identify the basic aspects of blended learning approach. Plan, ito yung medyo gusto natin, plan a precise blended learning lesson to be used or to use in your subject. Create a contextualized blended learning suited to your school. So later on, siguro in our question and answer, we will try to at least have a survey or simple question and answer on how does blended learning fitted to your school, especially for those who are in the province. And I think it is far more challenging to some of us, or interconnectivity rather. Now, in order for us to create a blended learning lesson, we must first consider the following. So based on this source, let's check first as teachers kung meron tayo nito or kung nagawa na natin to before we implement. I think DepEd is currently doing some of this in a form of survey. And I think some of you already has this information that DepEd is in the process of gathering information wherein this information are crucial because these are the parts of creating a blended learning lesson. So the first one is the objective of the lesson. I think all of us can has this idea of the lesson. Second is the learner's demographics. Ayan, I think DepEd people here can agree to me that there is an ongoing survey for students wherein they are asking who will who wish to enroll. Yan. I think it is quite controversial, or I think it's a national issue that some of the parents doesn't like their sons or children to be enrolled in this current school year. So currently, DepEd is
Sir, excuse lang, sir, ah.
yes.
Pwede nating tanggalin yung may lumalabas kasi na ano na parang text sa baba pag nagdi-discuss ka.
Okay. So paano ko siya tatanggalin? Parang hindi ko matatanggal, sir. Alang nga. Ayan. There. Okay?
Sige po.
Okay. And then of course, the access to resources. I think currently the department also is gathering information on how on how students wants or preferred to learn while they are under quarantine. I think some of the teachers would agree to me that there are ongoing surveys whether students has this laptop, internet connectivity. This is part of a general theme kasi yung pinofront ni Secretary Briones that the key is the one key that we can implement lesson is through blended learning. Nagtataka kayo, ba't nagpapa-survey? Because these are the key components when we want to implement blended learning. It must DepEd must have the idea regarding the information to this checklist. And of course, access to technology. Magugulat kayo that some of the teachers also doesn't have laptops or doesn't have stable internet. So paano yon? So that's the idea or that's the thing. If someone asks you, bakit nagpapa-survey? Simply because the theme or the general theme or one of the general approaches na kinoconsider ng DepEd is blended learning. And it's part of the preparation prior to its full implementation that we must have this type of surveys. And of course, decide how you want to combine online materials with in-person lessons. So when we say online materials, we're referring to the usage of internet or in-person, which means face-to-face. The desired learning outcomes to determine what blended of activities would appropriate to the subject content. So later on, siguro you can ask me kasi I can only refer to science because that's my subject. But for other subjects, we can also adapt this type of learning approach kasi pan-general naman siya. Let's begin. No? Essential elements of blended learning. So kailangan when we create our own learning, blended learning lesson, kailangan may ganitong klaseng at it has a minimum requirements of these 4 essential elements. The first one is small group discussion is important. Whether the small group in the small group discussion, it involves the students, pwede sila, pwede rin namang teacher-students. Or it can be in 2 types, no? The small group discussion can be students to students, online or face-to-face. When we say online small group discussion, nagkikreate sila ng mga sarili nilang messenger group, ganyan. O pag sinabi namang online small group, pwedeng ikaw nandun ka and then 4 lang tuturuan mo. Pwede siyang online or pwede siyang nangyayari sa loob ng school. We have integrated digital content, so engages students for individualized learning. There is an emphasis here that we also need to know the self-paced learning of students. Well, of course, dapat ito minomonitor ni teacher. O dito ngayon papasok yung konsepto ng asynchronous type of learning. Kasi some of our students, hindi nila gusto na sabay-sabay silang tinuturuan. May iba, mabagal makaintindi, pero naman iba, sobrang bilis. So time is a key element here. How would you be able to address or to deliver your lesson with this type of learners? So crucial din yung types of learners mo. So pagdating ng August 24, kailangan makapag-survey ka at least within that week kung anong klaseng learner ang haharapin mo. Kasi doon mo ibabase ngayon yung klase ng blended learning strategy na angkop sa kanila. Well, of course, differentiation is also evident. It enables differentiated instruction for greater impact. Mas gusto ng bata ng hindi lang siya nakaupo. Gusto niya may ginagawa siya. It can be in the form of problem solving. So, pwede rin siya yung sumasayaw, pwede siyang nagre-report. We can do this online and offline through blended learning. We also have data-driven decisions, provides frequent, high-fidelity data to inform instructional decisions. So, I remember when we had our training with Dr. Atwe. Dr. Atwe is a good professor in research in LaSalle. Sabi niya sa amin na kailangan daw when we create our lessons, especially dealing with technology, kailangan in order siya, sunod-sunod. And of course, second, kailangan there is what we call aside from order, there is what we call kailangan the instructions are clear. Kailangan malinaw sa bata down to the specific instruction kung ano ang gagawin niya. And of course, crucial din yung meron ka dapat time frame, kung kailan tatapusin. And of course, as teachers, since this coming school year, majority of our time, nasa bahay lang tayo, kailangan constant pa rin yung feedback or pwedeng sabihin nating pagko-coach whether yung estudyante nahihirapan siya or not. Ideally, this is a good way of checking kasi kung ang bata naman mahilig mag-Facebook, pwede ka naman niyang i-PM personally. Kasi ang bata mas komportabling pini-PM na lang si teacher, sir, hindi ko po naintindihan. So encourage your students na magsabi kung hindi nila naiintindihan yung lesson, lalo na kung yung mga activity is self-paced. And at some point, at this crucial point, asynchronous yun. Kasi hindi mo alam kung ilang bata ang nagbabasa ngayon, nanonood ng videos na gusto mong ipanood, nagsasagot na, may iba dyan na babagalang ka. Now, paano mo malalaman yon? Now, upon opening of class, kailangan mag-set ka na ng mood na dapat si teacher welcoming. In a way that kailangan nagiging open yung bata sa atin whether or not nahihirapan siya or okay lang sa kanya yung lesson. Okay? So later on, I'll be answering questions regarding this. Pero what did we learn before we give examples on blended learning? First, kailangan we must create order in our lesson. Kailangan everyday meron kang checklist ng dapat ginagawa ng bata. Because nasa prerogative ni teacher ang mag-set ng time. It is in the prerogative of the teacher to set the time, to set the date, the exact time and date for them to finish a specific activity. Kasi yun ang medyo nakakatakot sa self-paced learning. Kasi ang notion ni bata, ay, binigyan lang kami ng activity sa isang linggo, gagawin namin to. Expect mo ba na gagawin nila yon ng agad-agad? The crucial point there is that as teachers, we must create a detailed, clear instruction kapag nakita natin or na-meet natin yung mga bata para once they go to respective houses to learn on their own, malinaw sa kanila na, ay, may ipapasa pala. Ay, may sasagutan pala. Ay, ngayon ang deadline. Ganon. And of course, there is also constant feedbacking even if the child is in self-paced learning or asynchronous. Kasi sa synchronous, madali yon. Why do I say so? Kasi mamamonitor mo. Kasi sabay-sabay natututo yung bata. Mas madali siyang i-monitor. But the challenge here is when we are in asynchronous part na of blended learning lesson, no? Ikaw mag-iisip ka, ano kung ginagawa ng mga estudyante ito? You can constantly check them. Is there any problem? Para at least yung bata medyo hindi naman sabihin na authoritative yung dating natin. Na medyo talagang nakikita niya sa mga teachers niya na, ay, si teacher concerned sa akin. Kasi kahit online phase na kami, still, he or she wants us to learn. Ang maganda doon, pwede mong i-PM personally. Okay. So, I'll be giving you at least 3 types of samples ng AATBL na we conceive kasi mas magandang may example tayo ng mga blended learning, adaptive and authentic type of blended learning lessons. So I'll be tapping 3 types of learning model. Now it's up to us later on siguro sa Q&A. Siguro mas maganda may Q&A tayo, no? Pakita ko sa inyo yung sample ng academia ng kanilang student workbook. And before I proceed pala, before you create your blended learning lesson, crucial talaga, ito yung sa mga pinaka-crucial, kailangan makakuha ka or makapag-create ka or makakuha ka ng isang napakagandang, sabihin nating, instructional material na ang nature niya talaga nag-a-adapt sa lahat ng situations. Okay? So meaning, crucial talaga yung instructional materials na pipiliin mo when you want to create a blended learning lesson. Why? Kasi there are some instructional materials that only best fit in online classes. Paano kung, yun nga yung sinasabi nyo, paano kung wala namang internet si bata? Di wala. Tama? Paano naman kung may internet si bata, tapos yung sinend mo naman sa kanyang material, malalabo yung pictures, yung graphics hindi maganda, or masyado namang hindi friendly yung mga terms. Now, before you create, kailangan makakuha ka muna, or sabihin natin makapag-create ka ng isang instructional material that can adjust to your blended lesson. Okay? I think later on, I'm expecting some questions. Pero let's go to the different models. So the first type of lesson na pwede natin i-create is yung pinaka-common, somewhat close to me. No? It is a rotation model and the sub-level is known flipped classroom model. So I'll be using the Academia Grade 7 lesson para at least meron tayong connection or connectivity. So later on, papakita ko sa inyo yung workbook na ginawa ng Academia. Tingnan natin, makikita natin talaga, no? Later on, makikita natin na ay, nag-fit yung instructional material or model, instructional material ng Academia doon sa blended lesson, blended learning lesson ni teacher. Okay? So, let's recall, when we say flipped classroom model, okay, half of the class, the entire class may encounter siya ni teacher. Pero bago yon, magbibigay muna si teacher ng mga lessons online. So lahat ng lesson niya ibibigay niya online, pwede ring offline. Dito na pumapasok ngayon yung context ng instructional material mo. Sir, paano po kung yung instructional material ko pang online lang? Paano yung mga estudyante kung walang internet? O ibig sabihin, yung instructional material mo, hindi siya nag-fit or hindi siya flexible doon sa gusto mong blended learning lesson. Di ba crucial? So, dapat yung instructional material can be in a form of online, can be in form of online and offline. In the case of the workbook of Academia, I think meron sila yung may online version at may offline version. Something na nagustuhan ko naman kasi ay pwede siya sa flip. Bakit? Kasi kahit walang internet yung bata, pwedeng mag-module siya kasi may offline version pala yung workbook. Okay? So lahat ng mga content, the instruction is in the workbook. So students can check it online. Students na walang internet can check it online. And then once they meet again at school, doon na ngayon i-address yung mga sagot sa activity. So I want to show you what we call a work plan for at least 1 week para malinaw sa inyo. Later on, balikan-balikan natin siya to check ano ba yung impact ng isang magandang instructional material sa ating blended learning lesson. Ayan. So I have here a 1-week plan showcasing how flipped model can adapt to our current situation. Let's say, for example, the scheduling will be at least sa isang linggo, twice a week mo makikita yung mga bata. Let's say, for example, Monday and Friday. Kasi normally, alam ko ganun eh. May ibang mga schools na imi-meet pa rin daw nila yung mga bata, pero hindi everyday. So in this case, I just present a case. This is a week. So makikita lang ni teacher ang bata Monday and then Friday. Now, it will depend. Pwede ring face-to-face, pwedeng online yung meeting. And I think the nature of that is synchronous. Okay, pero prior to that, naglagay ako ng Sunday, kailangan si teacher mag-create na siya, mag-plan na siya ng lesson niya. So plan siya ng lesson, kung anong lesson niya. In the academia, I think meron silang nasan yung workbook ng academia, parang meron. Wala nga, excuse me. Tignan ko muna. Meron sila. Ayan, here. So, if we're going to look at the teacher's guide of academia, kahit na academia sa akin, pinahirap talaga nila ito sa akin. Okay, here. Makikita natin sa kanilang lesson na sunod-sunod, no? From activity 1 to 9. So, dapat yung inyong makukuhang instructional material, may ganitong klaseng presentation. Kasi malalaman mo kung ilang araw siya. O, paano ko malalaman kung ilang araw siya? I think somewhere here. Ang galing-galing talaga ng ano. Ayan, oo. Let's say, for example, kailangan ng titignan mong material, yung mag-i-indicate kung ilang araw siya. So, this is week 1, day 1. Isang araw lang yun. Yung susunod is, I think, week 1, day 1. So, ibig sabihin, sa isang araw, kailangan magawa to. So, si teacher ngayon, kailangan magawa yun. So, paano gagawin yun? Okay, balik tayo dun sa aking presentation. Yan. Here. Okay.
Meron ulit na ano, sir.
Po?
Sir,
Wala na po.
meron ulit atang ano eh.
Wala po, tinigil ko na po.
Atin na naman na. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in this case, so Sunday, plan your lesson, prepare your list of lessons for a week. So nakita nyo kanina doon sa teacher's guide ni academia, meron siyang list of lessons, no? So in that case, I think lesson 1 lang yun, pero may mga list of activities siya. Ang maganda, makikita mo yung pagkakasunod-sunod. Now, there is a suggested day or time allotment for specific activity. Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin nun that you are limit to that idea. Siyempre, pusuhan mo muna yung mga estudyante mo. If you think mas matagal yung kailangan niya i-google doon, well, nasa sa inyo. Okay? So, just in case, ready ka na, and then all of your lessons are already uploaded in the following online platforms. Pwedeng Google Classroom, Edmodo, MS Teams, ClassDojo, or Academia. I think meron din silang LMS. So, pwede natin siyang i-upload doon if that is online. Eh sir, paano po pag offline? O, ayan na. So, kung yung mga lessons mo, hindi siya pwede ng kagaya ng ibang instructional material na hindi naman best fit for downloading, talo ka na doon. So in other case, in other situations, kailangan makakita ka, you must think or look for lessons na talagang pwede siyang printed material. And I think yata ang academia, meron silang printed version ng workbook na yon. O di, tanggalin mo tong Sunday. Let's say, for example, prior to the Monday na bigay mo na yung buong module. O di na-address mo na yung concern ngayon doon sa mga walang internet. Eh sir, hindi naman kami pwedeng mag-house to house. O di dyan papasok ngayon yung, yung barangay. Diba? Pwede mong iwan sa barangay or ask someone na pwede magbigay sa'yo doon sa barangay na yun. Eh kung sa GCQ naman na tayo, I think some of us are in the GCQ right now, eh mas madali na sa ating mamigay ng module. Eh sir, paano po kung kung nasa remote area siya? O yun, through the module na printed, ma-address na natin yung concern for the students na walang internet connectivity. Okay. So, imi-meet mo halimbawa Monday lang tsaka Friday. Monday, kailangan prepared si teacher. Paano, di-deliver mo yung lesson mo. Bibigay mo lang yung overview. O class, for this week, ito yung mga activities na gagawin natin. For example, 3 activity siya or 4 na activity siya, suited for at least 5 days, bigay mo. Ibigay mo kung 4 yung activity. And then, make sure, dun sa activity, ito lang naman ang tanong dyan, eh sir, paano sasagutan ng mga bata yung activity? Eh wala siya pagkukuha ng sagot. O, babalik ko sa notion na kailangan the instructional material should be flexible. May pagkukuhanan dapat dun sa material ng sagot or idea si learner na kahit hindi siya dumepende sa internet nandun sa workbook or kung nasa workbook naman, ay kung nasa internet naman siya, may mga sinasuggest na link si teacher para puntahan ni bata. And I think academia has that also. Check natin, alam ko meron sila. If we're going to look at their lesson, example, lesson 4, activity 4 in lesson 1 variable, the read this corner. So kung yung bata, walang internet at naka-module to, babasahin niya to. Okay? And then, ayan, look at this. Ang nakakatuwa lang dito, kasi, ang nakakatuwa lang dito is, meron siyang suggested internet connection. Okay? Meron siyang suggested internet connection. Internet link, sorry. So may sinasuggest yung workbook na apuntahan to just in case online yung bata. If the bata is not online, therefore, babasahin niyo yung read this corner. So nagiging flexible ngayon si instructional material. Ito yung activity yung sasagutan ni teacher, ay ni bata. And then at the end, date accomplished, parent signature. There we go. Now, after delivering your lesson, you give precise and clear instruction. Saan? Siyempre, dahil may listahan ka naman yung mga activities, kailangan alam mo yung mga online sites na pupuntahan ni bata. And of course, the deadlines per activity. Let's say, for example, for 1 week, 4 na activity yung papagawa mo, and 3 days of that particular week is asynchronous, medyo challenging, then, dapat you give a specific deadline. O yung activity 1 na to, kailangan matapos na itong araw. Para si bata, makapag-create siya ngayon ng tinatawag na learning management sa kanyang sarili. Ay, nagagawin ko muna to kasi ito yung sinabi ni teacher. And of course, don't forget the class rules. Halimbawa, kung involved ka sa GC ng mga bata, let's say for example for Messenger or other online platforms, kung hindi naman, wala namang katuturan yung mga pinag-uusapan nila, then remind them. Kasi mahalaga pa rin may class rules even if that is online. Then, Tuesday to Thursday, ayan na, the online or the modular self-paced learning. So, pwedeng modular, yung binigay mo sa bata, pwede rin yung online. Now, this involves 2 types of learning environment. We have what we call the asynchronous. Kasi syempre, hindi mo naman madedetermine kung ilan yung bata na gumagawa ng Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But since you have a deadline per activity, ma-assess mo through constant feedbacking and of course, coaching, kung sino yung mga bata na mahirap or nahihirapan dun sa lesson. Kaya nga di ba sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, if the children are now in their online or modular self-paced learning, kailangan may constant feedbacking pa rin. Okay, paano papasok si magulang dito? You can ask the parents to be involved here. Like for example, pwede kang i-chat ni parent na, ay ma'am, medyo nahihirapan po si student ko, ganyan-ganyan. So you can give coaching or pwede mong i-one-on-one yung bata regarding that one. Kasi baka nahihirapan siya ng kung madami silang nakikinig sa'yo sa instruction. And of course, babalik sila ng Friday. The students will consolidate the understanding. This can be, pwede pumunta sa school kung papayagan kayo, or online and then modular, which is kung sabay-sabay, synchronous. Okay? So later, I'll be entertaining questions para at least mas malinaw sa inyo. Next, we go to self-blend classroom model. O pag sinabing self-blend, this is the structure. Ayan. So in the school, let's say for example, if you have 100% of your class, and sinabi lang naman ng DepEd, kalahati lang ang papasok, o di pasok pa rin. Why? In the self-blended model, we are encouraging our class to have what we call small group discussion. A small group discussion. So if they're in the school, you can divide the 50% to 25-25. 25% will be face-to-face. O ideal yon sa physical distancing. And then 25 will be in their peer group discussion. Peer group, pwede rin namang gamit yung online lesson na binigay mo using their phones. Yan nga sinasabi ko sa inyo, crucial talaga yung instructional material na gagamitin natin. They can understand it by group kasi sila yung magtuturuan sa sarili nila. Always remember that the best way to learn is to reteach or to teach the lesson. The best way to learn, tandaan nyo yun. Mas magandang nakikita natin, tinuturo ng ating mga estudyante yung lesson mo. Kasi in that way, you can verify, ay naiintindihan ng bata kasi tinuturo niya sa kanyang kapwa estudyante. Now, in the workbook of Academia, they are suggesting members in a small group discussion can be 3 or 4 members. And then, nakita niyo yung arrow? The arrow is somewhat saying to us na it can be interchanging. Meaning, you can do small group discussions at home. May kanya-kanyang GC mga bata. Or pwede rin naman na sa school. Okay? And of course, while they are outside or in their respective homes, kailangan meron pa rin constant feedbacking and mentoring to check kung saan na yung pace ni bata, even if that is self-paced. Yan. So what differs self-blended model to split type of model? Sunday, prepare ka ulit. Okay? Well, kung modular siya, bigay mo na sa bata. Now, Monday, kung isang araw lang talaga ang pasok ni bata, or kung wala talaga hindi pwedeng pumasok si bata sa school at all, o yan yung challenge natin. Or sabihin natin medyo niluwagan yung restrictions na ang papasok lang ang kakausapin mo lang face-to-face is 10 bata. Ideal tong self-blend model. Look at the ratio. Monday, nabigay ng instruction and the like. Tuesday to Friday, this will rotate ha, iikot-ikot siya. Let's say for example, Tuesday, 25% of your class ang tuturuan mo. And then 25% naka-peer group discussion. Pwedeng sa bahay yon, pwedeng sa school. Let's say for example, you have 60 students. Okay, hatiin mo sa dalawa, tig 15. So yung 15 na yun, hahatiin mo pa siya kung nasa classroom. 7 lang ang tuturuan mo, yung 7 naka-group. O kung 7 lang, 7 estudyante lang yun, 2 group, isang 3, isang 4. And then they will teach by themselves. 4 Pero we can create our own spaces or peer group discussion spaces na wala masyadong physical distancing. Merong physical distancing or minimum requirement to avoid yung what we call masyadong may contact sa bata. And of course, half of the class is online. You're expecting na kung online yung kalahati, asynchronous yun. But for face-to-face and peer group discussion, since that is inside the classroom, synchronous siya by nature. So imaginein mo yung comfort sa'yo being a teacher. Papasok ka sa school, ang estudyante, kung planadong-planado to, malalaman mo kung ilan lang ang estudyante mo at malalaman mo kung ilan lang ang dapat mong turuan with that particular day. I think papayag naman ang mga schools nyo na ang papasok lang half of the class on Tuesday to Friday. And hindi naman lahat papasok. Ang maganda lang dito is, in the blended learning using self-blend model, you can, as students can experience lecture pa din, experience pa rin ni teacher yung, experience pa rin ni bata yung peer group discussion by group, and of course, modular. Take note, in blended learning, isa sa mga element is kailangan may groupings pa rin kahit pa ba. This, umiikot siya. Depende sa iyo as a teacher kung anong araw papasok si bata, pwedeng ganon, or kailan sila mag-groupings. Groupings can be online baka ma-misinterpret ako doon. Sir, pwede bang yung online namin grouping? So imagine mo kung 15 na lang yung papasok sa'yo, kung 30 estudyante mo, tapos 15 na lang yung papasok sa'yo, tapos groupings pa yung 7 na lang talaga papasok. And the rest are in the respective homes. I think that is not a bad idea. Next, model ato. Enrich virtual model. Using again, nakikita niyo yung yung flexibility ng workbook ni Academia. One thing that is good is that the workbook can be in modular na pwedeng printed. Pwede rin siyang online. Medyo challenging sa atin yun kasi kailangan makahanap ko talaga ng instructional material that can suit or best fit the two. Okay? Now, in the virtual enrich model, ayan. So, yung half of the class will be at home, half of the class will be online, and then half of that half, yun yung kakausapin mo. Pero anong pinagkaiba dito? Ang pinagkaiba dito is there is no group. Walang peer group discussion. Lahat kay teacher, especially yung mga nag-o-online, pero nandun si teacher, nagsusupervise siya. And this is individual self-paced. Eh sir, paano pag wala na namang internet? Eh di module ang ibibigay mo. Pero hindi mo sila, walang lecture. Okay? So parang ang magiging mode nun, modular pa rin, pero nasa loob sila ng klase. Dahil naman ang module can stand alone, kung may tanong lang si bata, doon ka lang magbabati. Now, sino lang ang tuturuan mo? Remember, sinabi ko kanina na kailangan kilala mo yung mga estudyante mo. So, yung medyo mahirap umintindi, yun talaga ang kailangan ng intensive coaching. So, this is the work plan. So, plan, Sunday, Monday, deliver mo yung lesson, Tuesday, as it is. Iikot ulit. But look, face-to-face is 25% of the class. Online is only just 25% of the class. But take note, they are both inside the classroom. So kung may 30 students ka, 15 nasa classroom, 7 are doing online, individual online learning individual, pero nandun ka. Then half naman face-to-face. Okay? So ang maganda naman dito is that malalaman mo kung sino yung mga batang komportable nang meron silang hawak na digital tool. Malalaman mo rin kung sino yung batang komportable na nakikinig lang sa teacher. So dito mo, sa ganito mga panahon mo talaga maiintindihan yung mga estudyante mo kung gaano sila ka-flexible pagdating sa pagtuturo. Take note, this is also interchanging. Meaning, yung mga nag-individual online facing sa bahay, pwede sila magpalit doon sa mga nag-online learning din ng individual sa classroom. It's up for you to plan and schedule them. Ini-schedule kasi yon. Okay? Now look, Monday, lagi Monday sinasabi ko, no? Sir, paano pag Wednesday? O di Wednesday, yung magpa-flex, i-move mo lang yung schedule mo. So Monday or synchronous yun, syempre you give decisions. And of course, Tuesday to Friday, you have this rotation. Now what is unique here is that makikita mo yung flexibility ng mga estudyante. Whether or not they're accustomed to online learning or they are accustomed to having you inside the classroom. Question so far?
May tanong dito sa Facebook natin.
Okay. I think we can now babalikan ko kung medyo talagang hindi na or sabihin may clarification o point of clarification.
Yes po.
Pero balik tayo kung may tanong, I think the floor is open now for questions.
Sige. So, ang unang tanong is, paano po ang grading system ng modular, lalo na sa performance output? Magbabago po ba?
Hindi naman. I think walang binibigay ang DepEd pa so far na bagong grading system. So far, I'm saying this so far, no? Kasi depende sa situation natin. Pero since wala pa silang binababang memo on that, stick tayo sa dati. Now, doon papasok yung concept ng paano mo pipiliin yung tamang instructional material for you. I think academia, meron sila, ayan o, meron silang date accomplished. Because I think in some of their activities, nakakatuwa. Kasi may mga, ayan, imagine this, there is what we call my score, check by teacher. I think this belongs to written works. No? Tapos I think at the end, meron silang performance task. It's up to you kung saan mo lalagay yung activity. If in this case, ayan, nag-graph sila, tinetest mo yung kanilang skills in graphing and understanding tables, pwede siya mag-fall doon sa, hindi siya written works, pwede siya sa experiment type. Okay? I think at the end part, meron sila ditong performance task. May post-test at pre-test pa nga nakakatuwa. And then they have also here. Ayan this is the performance task. Ayan. Ang nakakatuwa lang kasi, meron silang performance task na ang line is design thinking. So, ang bata makakapag-isip siya at home. Ganon. So far, wala pa pong binibigyan DepEd na bagong grading system on our case. Pero I think the best way to fit your grade, to fit the assessment is kung depende po yun sa klase ng assessment. Depende sa instructional material na ginagamit mo. I think, nasagot ko ba yung tanong?
Pwede magtanong, sir?
Sige po ma'am. Hi po.
From Iligan City, sir, Mindanao.
Yes.
Kasi sa amin, team teaching kami sa grade 5.
Uy, that's nice.
Tapos, every year, handle kami ng 45 to 50 pupils.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, sige.
Tapos, kung mayroon tayong modular, mayroon tayong face-to-face, mayroon din tayong online.
Yes, ma'am.
Siguro first things first is yung i-classify yung bata kung saan yung gusto, saan yung modular, saan yung gustong face-to-face, at saan yung online.
Yeah, remember, kaya nagpa-survey nga ang DepEd kasi look at the elements of blended learning. Kailangan alamin muna natin gaano kadami yung may online, may internet connectivity, modular.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Ang tanong ko, sir,
yes,
yung kasi sa dami ng bata na mag-transfer kami sa other sections, paano kaya yun? Yung like me, transfer ako ng ibang section 1, o mayroon pa akong klase ng section 2. Paano kaya ngayon? Going to focus in one section na?
Okay. Kung team teaching kayo, ma'am, I think maganda to. Kasi hindi naman lahat kayo papasok within the day. Pwede kasing ang mangyari, ganito ma'am, ibang blended learning model yun eh. Dapat level siya. Tama ba ako? Kasi ang
Sir?
mangyayari doon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Again, sir, again.
Ang mangyayari kasi doon, ma'am, ask first the principal kung pwedeng ang mangyayari kasi kung magse-sectioning kayo, yung tanong mo sa akin, hindi aakma yung yun. Parang ang mangyayari, isuggest mo na may iba pang blended learning model na section siya. Halimbawa, ma'am, yung buong section, bibigyan nyo ng mode. Tapos, kung sino lang yung mga bata na ma-identify nyo na kailangan ng face-to-face learning or kailangan ng supervision while in their respective class, yun lang ang imimit nyo sa klase. Ganun ang mangyayari, ma'am. Ganun ang mangyayari, ma'am. You can suggest to the principal na mas mahihirapan kasi kayo, ma'am, kung may section. Lalo na kung team teaching kayo at kayo bawat section. Pwede kasing ang mangyari doon, ma'am, kung ang population ng mga bata is around nasa 200 sila, let's say for one grade level, 200 sila, ang mangyayari, pasok lang yung ma-identify nyo na nahihirapan. Wala sa pwede I think nasa siya ng blended learning model na kung saan, kung sino yung grade level chairman ng particular grade level na yon, identify nyo na based on the feedbacking, pag-uusap nyo ng magulang, yun lang yung mga papasok. Kung modular yan, ma'am, okay lang din. Why? Siyempre, obviously, ang bata hindi makapag-report. Ang pwede mag-report doon, si magulang. Paano mag-report si magulang? Eh di kunin nyo yung contact number. Tapos i-text kayo, sabihin nyo na kung nahihirapan po, mag-text kayo sa akin para at least, based sa schedule, papasukin natin siya ng ganitong araw. Kung 7 lang naman sila or 5 lang naman sila yung small group discussion mo, ma'am. Or if face-to-face mo. Depende po yon sa pag-uusap nyo within grade level kung ano pong klaseng scheduling ang gagawin ninyo. Ganun, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Salamat.
Welcome po. May question pa po ba, sir?
Tanong dito, I think specific naman dun sa sinishare ninyo sa academia. So I think I can answer this. Kung yun po bang academy material, yung student workbook, align po daw po ba yun sa MELC? Ang sagot po dyan ay yes po.
Nakita ko naman kasi, yeah. Naka-align siya sa most essential learning competence. I think nandito yun. Sige, pakita ko. Pero I think naka-align yata. Teacher's guide. Naka-align yata siya. Ayan, nakalagay po sa presentation po. Opo, naka-align.
So the answer is yes po dun sa mga nagtatanong.
Naka-align.
Ang isa pang pong tanong is regarding naman ito sa, I think, MAPE ata ito na subject eh. Dun sa grade 9.
Yan. Okay.
Ayan.
Sige po, anong tanong?
Yes po. Paano daw po ba i-assess yung skill kung yung subject ay cookery for grade 9 students?
Actually,
Hindi po yan, sir, TLE kung cookery. Hindi po yan, ma'am.
Sorry, mama. Thank you sa nag-point out.
Yan din sana, sir, yung itatanong ko. Paano po kasi yung TLE kasi may 4 na HE, agriculture, industrial arts, at saka ICT. Paano po ba namin maano yung itong blended learning sa halimbawa for online na usually dapat actual ang may actual siya, may performance kibale mag-cooking dapat
Yes.
actual. So paano po ba yun namin mayroon po bang study na nagawa ang blended learning na lesson na sir?
Ma'am, in the context of blended learning, there is. Pero I can only give the points or suggestions kasi may crucial turning point yon dalawa. The first one is, ano ba yung instructional material mo? Kung siya naman ay modular na nag-i-stand alone o self-paced, posibleng mangyari yon. Pero ang issue lang dito, saan gagawin?
Yun nga, sir.
Yes. Now, I can reason out two. The first one is pwede siya sa classroom. Magsiset ka ngayon ng schedule na kung saan by scheduling individual pupunta yung bata, ma'am. Okay? Pwede
For example, sir, excuse me, sir. For example, sir, kasi yung mga magulang, for example ha, marami na kasi nag-comment na ayaw talaga nilang ipapunta yung mga bata.
Yes, ma'am.
So, pwede po ba namin yun sabihin sa mga magulang na dapat sila lang mag-actual, mag-video sila para
That's the second part, ma'am. Yun yung pangalawang sasabihin ko sana sa'yo. The first one is,
okay.
bigyan nyo yung parent ng option. The first option is, they go to the school at wherein dala nila yung mga materials nila. Kung magluluto sila, dala nila yung mga materials nila. Siguro, ideally, kung inaalaw ng DepEd, 5 or 7 bata lang yung pupunta, so be it, upon scheduling. O yun, ma'am, papuntahin, and then hiwa-hiwalay naman sila, and then you supervise. Okay?
O kasi yung
The second,
Yeah.
kung mahihirapan naman, or let's say for example, walang pupunta sa school, pwede naman na videohan nila.
Okay.
Okay, pwedeng videohan, ma'am. Kaya lang kasi ang challenge lang doon, paano mo siya i-assess ng nasa bahay lang? Siyempre, mas marami siyang hihingin. Like for example, resolution ng camera sa cellphone, internet connectivity. Ngayon, kung ang issue ng internet connectivity, kung may USB naman si bata, i-save sa USB yung video, ipadala sa barangay, kunin nyo sa barangay.
Okay, sir.
Pwedeng ganun, ma'am. Or, ganito, ma'am. Kung yung mga estudyante mo naman magkakapit-bahay yan sa isang barangay, pwedeng you can ask one student na kolektahin lahat ng videos kasi ma'am pwede lang i-share it yon. Ng mga bata, lahat ng videos ng mga estudyante, then kung may internet connectivity yung bata na yon, send to you right away. Provided, ma'am, kaya nga babalik tayo doon sa quality ng iyong learners ay ng iyong instructional material. Meron ba siyang rubric to assess? Kailangan may rubric 'yon para alam ng bata kung paano sila gigradean, even if that is video.
Yes, sir. May rubric.
There is a clear instruction. Ang ipe-present mo lang as a teacher, paano isasubmit sa iyo ni bata yung mga 'yon. Like for example, sa MAPE, sasayaw. Tama? O kung sasayaw naman, kung sasayaw, ganun pa rin. Unang option sa parent, gusto nyo ba papuntahin sa bata, scheduling lang, 5-5 sila? Pangalawa, pwede namang videohan na lang. Kung magkakapit bahay naman yung mga yan, isend sa messenger yung video, isend sa'yo. The cost of messenger data, kaya messenger sinasabi ko, is roughly around 20 or 10 pesos. Makakapag-send naman sila ng data nun. Or using, kung ang academia meron siyang module on MAPE or TLE, I think makakapag-set naman sila ng different way paano masasubmit ni bata. Okay? Ganun, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Bigyan si teacher, bigyan si parent ng option.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for that information.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Ay, hindi ko po marinig yung Shopee.
Hello po, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Sir, from Sir Roger po from Saudi Arabia. Sir,
Nice.
tanong po, if in case na ma-materialize yung yung dalawang session, yung dalawang type ng teaching, yung isa online face-to-face at isa module, paano natin sir ma-determine yung rank ng mga bata? Baka may magtatanong.
Okay. Syempre, ang key doon, kaya nga hindi ko po tinanggal sa ilalim yung tinatawag nating, yung, I think, nandito sa slide ko yon. Nasa baba. Mahalaga po sa blended learning ang constant feedbacking. When we say constant feedbacking, kailangan ina-assess natin yung bata, especially kapag sila ay nasa asynchronous type of environment na kanya-kanya na. Hindi ibig sabihin na self-paced learning is hayaan mo na yung bata. Ito na yung module, bahala ka na dyan. No. There must be a clear instruction for the child. regarding o may activity anak sa baba. 10 items yung sasagutan. Expected ko na within this day, kailangan makapagsagot ka dito. Now, paano mo malalaman? Let's say for example, inalaw na ng DepEd na at least once a week, no? Papasok yung klase. Doon mo ngayon i-check. Kasi may discussion eh. Depende po sa model na gagamitin natin. In the flip classroom, ayan,
Opo.
Friday, students will consolidate. Meaning, kung inaalaw na ng DepEd na pumasok at least once a week, edi within that day, kung Friday man siya or anytime, doon mo i-assess. Checkan. Kaya nga po depende siya sa quality ng instructional material na gagawin or in our case, yung nakita ko sa akademiya, na medyo dapat maganda, na nag-a-adjust doon sa klase ng blended learning lesson na gagawin mo. Ganun po siya, sir.
Okay. Okay po,
Okay.
sir. Follow-up question, no? Like for instance, yung parent po, ayaw niya talaga papuntahin yung bata sa school kasi hindi pa zero ang zero K and zero free ang COVID free yung halimbawa dito sa amin. So, gusto ng parents i-continue na lang yung module na lang or online. It is possible also, sir, na yun ang gagawin ng parents, even though na okay na po dito, na pwede nang pumasok yung bata, pero ayaw ng parents. It is possible also na i-continue yung online.
Yeah. Look at this model. From Monday to Friday, it's optional. Look, face-to-face, online, or modular. Depende sa preferred ng bata, provided that is synchronous. Na pag nabigyan ng instruction, whether nandyan siya, pwede nanonood siya sa'yo, or pwede bibigyan mo siya ng module, it's still synchronous kasi bibigyan mo ng specific time and date. Halimbawa, Monday, kailangan 8 to 9, makita ko kayo, kaya maramdaman ko kayo. It can be through chat, or it can be online, kung may platform ka naman. So dapat si teacher medyo flexible. That's the term. I think Dr. Atu have mentioned the term flexible. Kailangan flexible, kailangan available si teacher in all types of modalities, whether that is online, face-to-face, or modular, no? Or at some case, i-check mo, pwede nating i-text. Anak, magbibigay ako ng instruction kung may cellphone man yung bata or si teacher. Kasi I think naman may cellphone naman yung bata. I think for most, no? O pwede niya hiramin yung sa magulang niya. Pwede naman siya mag-Facebook data or kung walang data, free Facebook, chat. Bibigyan mo instruction doon. Make sure that the time and the date are all the same in all platforms. Yun yung medyo challenging sa atin kasi kailangan medyo flexible si teacher sa iba't ibang klase ng modalities, especially kung ano yung preferred ng magulang sa mga anak nila.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Last na lang po, sir.
Sir.
Especially
Po, medyo choppy po, sir.
especially kung ng writing.
Oh, okay.
Especially yung writing at saka reading.
Okay, great.
So, ang hirap talaga,
Okay.
especially pag hindi mo yung bata, hindi punta ng school or
Hindi
makapag-report ng school.
Yes. Tama.
Opo.
Ano pong tanong niyo doon, sir?
Ano yung mga ways or yung mga steps na gagawin ng preschool teacher para ma-enhance yung skills ng bata or maturuan ng maayos yung bata?
Like in your case, if you're in Saudi, I think the internet naman is quite stable. Tama ba?
Yung problem
Oh,
kasi
yun.
sa
Good.
internet.
Meaning, you can have online tutoring. Kaya nga po nakalagay dito sa part na to, may coaching pa rin siya while nasa self-paced yung bata. Kasi may mga batang sanay na may teacher dyan. May batang napanood lang yung video yung pinakita mo, okay na sa kanila, susundan na nila yon. Kaya nga, I use the term coaching simply because individualized na yung instruction. Depende na yun sa needs ng learner mo, kung sino yung lalapit sa'yo na nasabihin ni parent, Sir, gusto po ng anak ko makita kayo. So, ibig sabihin, from Tuesday to Thursday, makakapag-set ka ngayon ng time kung sino yung mga batang sanay na nakikita ka online.
Okay. So yun lang the best way siguro sir, especially yung mga working parents. Kaya mahirap sila na sa time na magturo ka or during the time ng instruction mo, wala yung parents. Kaya give na lang siguro ng
Oo,
additional or
tama. This is
special
the
time for
challenge for
them.
us. Challenge talaga sa atin since work from home tayo. Hindi
Opo.
tayo bound for 8 hours. Hindi
Opo.
tayo bound for 8 hours, no? Parang sabi ng parents, sir, pwede bang alas 7 ng gabi kita kulitin? Okay. Siyempre, ikaw, you give now. Kaya nga, that's the reason why instructions, availability is important. Kasi makakapag-assess
Okay.
ngayon si parent, ay, anong araw ko i-meet si sir? Siyempre, ikaw, magbibigay ka rin ng specific time and day mo. Hindi naman pwedeng laging hanggang alas 9 ng gabi, you have this type of availability. That's too much for us naman.
Opo. Okay,
Okay.
but sir, thank you so much. And
You.
thank you also for sharing your knowledge and time for us. Thank you. God bless
Thank
po.
you.
Sir, follow up lang.
Yes, ma'am.
Pwede.
Yes, ma'am.
Ay, yung sa ano yung ma-suggest mo sir ba? Kung halimbawa yung isang section sa elementary, 'di ba? Daily yung mga lessons namin from 8 subjects, yung 8 subjects namin from
Question lang, ma'am. Ikaw yung nagtuturo ng 8
yes.
subjects. Ikaw nagtuturo.
Oh, yung halimbawa, yung section mo lang yung tuturuan mo. 8
Yes, ma'am.
subjects 'yon.
Yes.
Paano yung hahatiin? Yung nagbasa ko sa memo, sir, taman lang at until Monday to Thursday lang yung memo na basa ko. Yung mga batang makapunta sa school. Paano kaya
Then,
hahatiin yung 8 subject mo sa
mm,
kung daily mo gagawin yun?
okay, ma'am. Ma'am, tingnan mo yung the most common is this. Tingnan mo yung pine-present ko ngayon. Yan naman, ma'am, it pertains to depende po sa scheduling ng school niyo 'yon. Kung meron kang 8 subjects and then in each subjects meron kang activity ibibigay, nasa careful planning mo 'yun, ma'am, kung paano mo siya i-a-address. Kaya nga, ma'am, sinasabi ko kanina pa that kailangan makakita tayo ng instructional material na flexible enough to those kind of instances. Kaya ikaw, ma'am, you have 8 subjects. Ikaw nagtuturo lahat. Kaya nga tinanong ko muna sa iyo kasi on that note, medyo favor on your part yon kasi hawak mo yung 8 subjects. Kasi ang mahirap kung isang subject lang ang hawak mo, tas 8 kayong teacher, mag-a-adjust ka ngayon sa ibang teacher. But since you are the one who teaches 8 subject, pwedeng yung first subject 8 to 9, second subject 9 to 10, pero ipa-pattern mo siya sa ganitong klase ng model. Ang maganda dito, ma'am, yung mga bata, dahil isa lang naman ang teacher, masasanay sila sa approach model, ikaw lang naman ang teacher. For
Okay, okay.
example, ma'am, Filipino, 8 to 9. Mag-flip classroom model ka doon, ma'am. So, nabigay mo na yung module mo doon, na-download mo na yung lesson mo doon ng Monday, kasi bata ngayon, 8 to 9 lahat yun ang gagawin lang. Pero depende yun, ma'am, sa instruction mo. Kasi may mga bata na i-interchange yun, especially kung Tuesday to Thursday, hindi mo sila mamimit. That's the reason why kailangan open ka to the possibility na, class, kung nahihirapan kayo sa subject na to, this particular activity, don't hesitate to reach me, whether through text, through PM, through chat, or kung meron kayong platform, you can use the academia, o i-chat ka doon ni sir, i-chat ka doon ni ma'am, i-chat ka ng bata. Kailangan mo flexible tayo sa mga ganong klase ng pagkakataon. Kasi ma'am, mas magwo-worry ako kung hindi mo na monitor si bata at least once a day, once a week, kung ano yung progress niya. Kasi medyo mag-iisip ka or maghuhula ka kung ano ginagawa niya. I think the answer there is order and then maayos na planning. And I think it depends on your school kung anong scheduling yung gagawin nila. Kung sa inyo naman po binigay yung chance to schedule it out, mas maganda. Ganun po. Any
Okay,
questions?
sir, thank you.
Welcome po. May question pa po ba? Hello? Sir Pete.
Yes po. Tinitignan ko yung Facebook natin. Meron pa po bang question tayo dyan, yung hindi pa nasasagot? Yes po. Sige po, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Hello sir, go ahead po. Ano pong tanong natin?
I'm waiting for questions, no? I think okay. I think last time in the first series of this webinar, nagbigay ako ng sample ay ng ano no, ng assignment. Now, within this week, try to reflect or try to think now using this week plan lang. Paano mo ngayon i-incorporate yung lesson mo with this 1 week using the 3 models na pinresent ko? Pwede mong i-interchange yung day. Depende yon sa binigay sa inyo ng school. Ang maganda dito, nakapaghanda ka na. Week 1, ito gagawin namin. I think DepEd has already given us the milk or most essential learning competencies. Draw from that. Kung ano yung mga existing mong lesson plans na I think pwede siyang modular or face-to-face or pwede siya suited for online, ipasok mo na. Gawin mo na siya, punuin mo na. Para pagdating ng August 24, equip ka na, mag-flip learning ako this month. O di gawin mo siya, no? As a teacher, lagyan mo ngayon ng sa gilid. Lagyan mo siya ng time, lagyan mo siya specific subject, ganon. This is just general lang kasi. I want you to create your own, kaya tinawag siyang AATBL, create your own using your own schedules to fit your needs. Yun po.
Okay po. Doon sa mga nagtatanong kung how do they able to get yung contents, meron po tayong after po nito, magsisend po tayo ng link and then you can rewatch yung webinar. And then doon sa mga Facebook na viewers natin, merong Facebook Live. So magiging recorded dyan. It will be available for few weeks. Then for those na certificates will be sent out doon sa mga WebEx natin. That will be automated, merong email. Doon naman sa mga Facebook Live attendees, meron po tayong forms na nilagay sa ating Facebook page. Now, magiging available po yan for 2 hours, maximum of 2 hours. Then magsisend po tayo. So make sure na nakapag-attendance sheet po tayo ha. I-share ko na din po from Academia, meron po kaming workbook. So dalawa po 'yan.
Ayan,
Yung grade 7.
Okay, yan na.
Yan na po. Then meron po yung kasamang teacher's guide. So yan po yung teacher's guide natin. Currently, ino-offer po namin yan ng nasa 150 pesos. So parang donations na lang din po yan doon sa manggagawa namin na nagpupuyat para magawa yung contents na to. 150 pesos is not as big as they are. Kasi makakatipid kayo, meron na kayong lesson plan for 1 week sa science. Meron na ding teacher's guide na kung saan magagamit ninyo. So if you are going to prepare your own blended learning, meron na kayong magiging pattern. Now, as we move on,
tama.
dagdagan po natin yan, magiging lesson 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. And then gagawin po natin na buong subjects na po. So that ang idea is that yung teachers natin will be given enough time para makapag-concentrate doon sa mga bagay na importante, which is basically yung pagtuturo sa mga bata. At the same time, kailangan nating bigyan din yung mga teachers natin ng personal time for their own lives kasi nakikita natin sa dami ng mga bata natin na tinuturuan, like 50, one section, hindi na tayo makakapag-concentrate. So sa Academia, we thought na bibigyan namin kayo ng magandang content, makakapagtipid ng oras ninyo, and then meron kayong gagawing parang template sa paggagawa ng mga lesson plan ninyo. Now yung workbook namin at saka yung students workbook at saka teacher's guide, if you buy them individually, nasa 150 each. But if bibilin po natin nung sabay, nasa 250 pesos na lang po. So, yun lang po at the end of Academia, and then thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Yes po.
Saan po namin mabibili, paano po namin mabili yung grade 7 lang po bang meron na teacher's guide at saka yung pupil's guide?
Yung for now po, yung ginagawa natin is for grade 7 pa lang. But we are developing.
Elementary po kasi elementary po kasi kami.
Okay. So we'll try to come up with elementary po, yung grade 1 to grade 6 po ba? Tama po ba?
TLE kasi ako, sir, sa grade 6.
Okay. Sige ma'am. For now po, ito yung ginagawa natin, yung grade 7 science,
Okay.
and then as we move on. Kaya importante po na tangkilikin natin kasi kung that will give us more time, more resources para makapag-develop ng magagandang materials para matulungan po yung mga teachers natin at saka yung mga parents natin. Kasi for 150, you would have already saved at least 3 weeks of your time as a teacher eh. Ang gagawin mo na lang is ipiprint na lang po natin. Pwede na ninyong ibigay sa mga students and then you can move on sa paggawa ng panibagong lessons po. Now,
So paano po namin ano bang basis ng pagbayad, sir?
meron po tayong ma'am. So, lahat online na ngayon. So, meron tayong website. I-share ko po yung link ngayon dito sa chat box.
So isi-send po ninyo sa amin yung link ninyo sa Gmail namin, sir.
Yes po. Automated po siya, ma'am. So, if you go doon sa link na binigay natin, meron po tayong ginawang konting website where parang o-orderin po natin na parang Lazada.
Okay.
Meron po tayong credit card. Kung merong credit card, meron din po tayong Dragon Pay. Yung Dragon Pay yung gagamitin niyo kung magbabayad kayo through Palawan, Bayad Center.
Okay.
Kung meron po kayong GCash, papasok din po doon. So it's not a big amount po yung 150. Malaki
Yes,
pong
sir.
may tutulong nun sa amin kasi magde-develop po kami nung next, which is lesson 2.
Kasi may grade 7 din ako na anak, sir, kaya mas gusto ko din.
Yes po.
Can I butt in, sir? Imagine, ma'am, nakita nyo, parang kung gagamit tayo ng mga instructional materials or modules that can be parang self-paced or can stand alone, like yung sa academia. We rest assured, ma'am, na at least at some point, kahit ba sabihin natin nasa distance learning or sabihin natin nasa kung walang online, offline, I think academia can flex or mag-a-adjust siya dun sa need ng bata. The child can learn it by him or herself.
Yes, sir. I agree. Kasi may grade 7 na ako na anak. So, I want to avail. So, kaya nag-asa ko kung paano mag-avail ng workbook ninyo.
Ayan po ma'am, nag-share po ako ng link sa Facebook Live at the same time dito sa chat box natin. So if you click that po, para dun din po sa mga taga-Saudi natin na nakikinig sa mga Middle East, pwede po nating i-open yung link, then meron po tayong options doon. So dalawa, individual at saka merong bundle. So pag bundle yung bibili ninyo, makakatipid po kayo ng 50 pesos. Okay, so any more questions po?
Sir, yung certificate, sir, the certificate of attendance lang po ba talaga o wala yung participation?
Anong ibig po sabihin natin ng participation, ma'am?
Yung unang webinar na blended learning, nakakuha na po ako ng certificate, pero certificate of appearance lang po or
Attendance.
wala po siyang attendance.
Yes po.
So wala po siyang participation, yung ganon. Yun lang
po kasi nag-attend lang po kayo, nag-participate lang po kayo, ma'am. So, yung binibigay po i-clear ko lang po sa certificates Yung certificate po natin is yung tinatawag natin sa PRC na self accreditation. So, ibig sabihin nun, hindi siya in-apply sa PRC for a specific CPD units. Ina-apply po kasi yun siya. So, pag meron po kayong self-accreditation, ibig po sabihin nun, pwede po kayong umattend ng kahit anong seminar, pwede sa Microsoft and all. Kayo po mismo yung magpapa-accredit sa PRC. And then yung PRC, CPD department po, yun po yung magbibigay sa inyo ng specific unit para doon po sa inatinan ninyo na event. Yun po yung process doon.
Okay, sir. Salamat, sir. Thank
Welcome,
you.
ma'am. Opo.
Sir, excuse po. Hello po to.
Yes po, sir.
Ask ko lang po about the teaching load. Is this the same 6 loads pa rin po ba?
Sir Ren, I think you can answer that question.
Okay. I think it is 6 loads, sir. Pero I think it will depend on the discretion of your principal kung yung 6 loads na yon pertains only to only half. Kasi I would just like to share my school. Sa school po kasi namin, ang ginawa ng aming principal is each section is hinati niya sa dalawa. Let's say for example, section 1A, section 1B. Ganon. Now, yung loading is I'm having 6 sections pero hindi ko imi-meet ng buo. Half lang siya. It will depend, sir, sa principal nyo kung ano po ang magiging scheduling and loading nyo. Pero so as far as I know, kailangan po meron kayatang 6 loads. Ganun, ganun, sir. Yes.
And one thing, sir, one thing. Yung kasi nababas ko rito sa chat box about the TG and students workbook. Makapag-provide din po kayo ng MAPE kasi isa sa mahirap. Kasi for ano siya.
Opo. Actually, there are a lot of webinars sa MAPE na ino-offer, I think, for other group. Pero so far, one thing na thematic sa kanya is, gaya nung sinabi ko kanina, when it comes to cooking and yung it requires hands-on activity. Like sa akin, sa science, kasi meron dapat kaming laboratory. I can only give you 2. Yun nga, ipapa-record mo sa bata yung kanyang output or the student will go to school pero once a week siguro or depende sa meeting time nyo. That's the reason why yung blended learning, pwede siyang mag-adjust. Kung gusto mo na yung bata nakikita mo actual, mag-scheduling ka, isang araw lang yung kahit for 2 weeks, isang araw pupunta sila sa school. Or pwedeng i-video, then ask someone na videohan yon, i-collect, i-send sa'yo sa through messenger. Kasi I think that's the cheapest way. Ganun, sir.
Sir, meron po kayong nagya sa akademiya ng...
Si Sir Pete po tanongin nyo, hindi ko po alam yun.
Sir, for now po, kasi ang ginawa natin dahil nagwe-webinar si Sir Renan, what we tried to do is come up po nga po nung lesson 1 para masabayan yung webinar niya. Now, as we move on po, gagawa po kami ng complete blended learning nung buong grade 7. That is the plan po. Kasi it takes time, lalo na ngayon, yung mga educators natin, medyo puno na din sila kasi gumagawa na sila ng nung mga contents para sa schools nila. So we are really trying hard to come up with a complete lesson blended or workbook, student workbook for all subjects.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think okay na tayo. So pag may mga tanong po kayo, just send us an email. I think alam niyo yung email ni Sir Renan. Wala pa po siyang YouTube, wala din po siyang ibang channel. So just send everything to his email and saka sa email na din po natin.
Yeah, I think I posted my email for collaboration. Wala po akong YouTube channel. I was planning to create one kasi meron po yung Loom app. Pwede naman, kaya lang wala po kasing ginagawa. So, I'm hoping to catch you up, all of you, sa email. Pwede naman po tayo mag-email.
Ano yung add nyo?
Nilagay ko na po, ulitin ko, resend ko na lang po.
Okay, send po ulit. Thank you.
Ayan na po.
So, pwede mag-abol ng tanong, sir?
Yes po, ma'am.
Kasi mayroon akong pinsan, yung auntie ko, yung anak niya working parents at tapos ang kanyang apo grade 1 at saka grade 2. So ang lola lang ang naiwan niya.
Nakakat po kayo, ma'am.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am. Hindi, choppy po kayo.
Kaya,
Yung lola niya po na naiwan din, ano pong tanong?
ang tanong sir, yung dalawang bata kasi grade 1, grade 2, working parents, ang naiwan yung lola. So ang gagamitin nila yung online. Paano daw nila, paano maturuan ng lola kasi hindi siya marunong sa online?
Now, I think yung sagot po dyan ay ganito. Before, yung school po will have to determine na ganun po. Pupunta po kayo sa school kasi it would be useless kung ibibigay natin yung online mode of learning doon sa lola na hindi naman niya alam kung paano iraran yung buong program. So you basically need to speak doon sa school kung yun po bang program na online is naaangkop doon sa bata. Otherwise, useless din po yun. Wala pong mangyayari. That's why Academia had come up with two things. Meron po tayong ginagawa ngayon na online learning, which is yung equivalent ng blended learning na ginagawa natin, yung printed. At saka meron po tayong offline, which is yung printed, na pwede ninyong ibigay sa students at yun po yung gagawa nila. And then, meron pong collaboration with the teachers.
So yun yung tanong niya. So sinabi ko naman mayroong module na ibigay sa kanila.
Yung po kasi yung crucial sa module, you should check the module if that is self-paced and can stand alone. Mahalaga po kasi that we also take time to check the module. The best module so far na pwede ko masasuggest is yung dapat yung module kinakausap yung bata.
Yun na nga sir eh.
In a way na para siyang may kausap pero libro lang yung kinakausap niya, ganon. Or module. Or any platform, pwede naka-PDF. Ganun, ma'am. Yun po yung so far, kung mahihirapan po yung parent or yung guardian na turuan si bata at home, I think the best solution there is to look for a best quality type of module na pwedeng si bata, si module ang kausap ni bata. Ngayon, kung may internet or may connectivity naman si bata, he can check.
So sa kausapin namin yung parent o yung lola, ganito ang gawin na lang pag nakabigay na kami ng module. Okay sir, thank you.
Kailangan po talaga ninyong kausapin yung parent, lalo na yung lola. Kasi yun yung pinaka-ano dyan yung pinaka-importante.
Sabi ko, hindi balik ang teacher magbigay naman ng module at i-explain naman sa inyo.
Yes po, kasi kung magiging online yan, usually pag online, self-directed yan eh. Like kayo mismo yung kukuha. Then merong parents or lola na magkakaroon ng intervention kung sakaling nakikita nila na walang progress yung bata. That's why doon sa lesson plan na nilagay ni Academia, yung binibenta natin for very low amount, low price, 150 pesos, nakikita ninyo, merong teacher's note doon. Meron ding signature ng parent. Kasi yun yung nagiging checkpoint natin.
So pwede sila makabili ng mga activities?
Ano na po siya?
Yung mga module, sir?
Yes po. Doon sa lesson 1 ng science, yun po yung bibilhin nung either school or kung teacher ka, yun yung gagamitin mo para ibigay sa students mo kung masyado kang madaming ginagawa. For example, kasi it will save you time, a lot of time, kasi pag-iisipan mo pa yun eh, gagawa pa ng lesson plan. Yung lesson 1 na blended na ginawa ng Academia is basically a tool para matulungan ninyo yung estudyante ninyo at yung sarili din ninyo. Yun yung point doon kung bakit nagagawa tayo ng ganyan. At saka yun nga po, very helpful siya dahil malalaman mo na na-check ng parent kasi imaginein mo yun, halimbawa nag-go-online ka lang tapos hindi alam ng lola. So hindi yun suitable para doon sa ganong audience or sa ganong klase ng mga students. So we need to be careful po na pag ikaw yung principal, for example, or ikaw yung school administrator, you need to be careful kung sino talaga yung bibigyan mo ng online learning management system at sino yung bibigyan mo ng blended, which is yung sinasabi natin na printed version na merong link doon if meron kang internet. If wala kang internet, then you have to read and then ibibigay sa parents, sa lola, ipapasign na ni-review niya na nagawa nga ng student, maliman yon or tama, and then pupunta ka sa teacher, merong intervention. So maglalagay doon ng teacher's note niya kung ano ba to, maganda ba or high remarks or malalaman mo, meron ka control as a teacher. At the same time, magagawa mo din yung iba mong work kasi hindi ka concentrated sa isang tao lang. Na-schedule mo yung buong sections mo, yung buong lessons mo, or kung may iba ka pang activities na personal.
Yes, sir. So, laking tulong sa amin yan, sir.
Yes po. So, go po tayo dun sa link. Nandun po yung link natin, academia.ph/courses. So, meron po tayo dun na 3 types. Meron tayong teacher's guide, meron tayong students workbook. At kung bibilhin po natin yung sabay, mas makakatipid po tayo ng 50 pesos. 250 pesos is not as much as bibili po tayo ng 50,000 na isang bahay. Makakatulong po sa inyo.
Sir, sir, regarding po yung... hello po, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yung workbook
regarding po yung...
sir, inad ko siya sa cart. Paano na siya i-process na bibilhin na siya?
I-check out nyo na po. So pag check out nyo na po siya, i-click nyo lang po yung view cart and then pipili po kayo doon kung ano yung payment na gagawin ninyo, kung DragonPay, kung transfer, gano'n.
Siya, diretso na din kaagad siya.
Yes po. Once na nakapagbayad po kayo, nag-clear po yung payment, automated po yan, papasok po siya dun sa email ninyo. And then yes po.
So magbabayad muna tapos padala niyo na lang.
Automated po siya, ma'am. By email po, matatanggap ninyo in seconds. Pag hindi po ninyo natanggap in 1 hour, contact nyo lang po tayo and then babalik po yung mga customer service natin po.
Okay, sige, sir. Salamat.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Meron pa pong mga tanong? More questions po? Wala na. So maybe we can have a conclusion, Sir Ren. Diyan po si Sir Ren. Yes, sir. Mag-final concluding remarks na po tayo, sir.
The overall idea is we deal with it as a challenge. And naniniwala ako na kaya tayo naging teacher kasi matatalino tayo. We can siguro important words na lang, learn to collaborate, no? Kagaya po ng ginagawa natin ngayon, this is a perfect way for us to share the ideas we've had. Ang gusto ko lang po mangyari is once we impart, i-share pa natin siya ng i-share para kumalat. Tama
yes.
Ba? And then at the same time, siguro learn to venture out, read more, tapos ask, ganun. Kasi the only way for us to at least to adjust is kailangan sumabay tayo dun sa norm. And I think mas maganda kung gumawa tayo talaga ng mga concrete ways on how to assess or to adapt to the change. Like Charles Darwin have mentioned, di ba, survival of the fittest, hindi kailangan na sobrang matalino ka or sobrang magaling ka. Ang goal dito is your capability or capacity to change, to adapt to the current situation. Once you're there, hindi ka mag-i-extinct. So, ang goal natin, mga kapatid, is to adapt and learn to adjust to this new norm. Yun lang. Magagawa lang natin yan if magkakaroon tayo ng concrete ways on how to reflect and how to assess ourselves saan ko ba dapat at saang area ko dapat baguhin yung mga current practices ko at saan ko siya mabibest set foot or forward or maging best ako sa version na yon in these trying times. That's it.
Thank you, sir. That is a very good words, parting words. So great. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. So doon sa mga, again, mag-aastong certificate, nandyan po yung link. Doon po sa mga umaten ng WebEx, meron pong separate email kayong matatanggap with a link to the form and then doon sa link para sa video. So thank you again. Join po kayo ulit sa amin for the next time, but we will eventually let you know sa mga next webinars na gagawin. Thank you kay Sir Ren for sharing his knowledge and more power to all of you.
Sir, pwede pahabol?
Yes, sir.
Sir, kasi nakapag-fill up ako ngayon lang ng form, attendance form. So, nakapag-submit ako. Then lumabas yung your score.
Yes po. Anong nakalagay?
Yung score. Pero ang nakalagay doon 0-0.
Ayun, okay lang yun, sir.
Okay lang. Kasi medyo...
Hindi natin lalagyan ng score kasi naka-automated tayo eh.
Okay, kasi wala naman po.
Yes po. So okay lang po yun, sir. You will get your certificate. Antay-antay lang po kasi lalo na yung Google. Si Google kasi may limitations yan in terms of pagbibigay ng certificates. Kaya natatagalan tayo. Inaano niya, nilalagay niya sa batch. Otherwise, nagiging spam po sa emails natin. Lalo na nag-mass send out ng emails. Nagkakaroon ng backlog. So antay-antay lang po tayo, sir, for maybe maximum 2 to 3 days. If hindi po kayo makatanggap ng certificate, message nyo lang po kami sa Academia and then we will send you your certificate po.
Ko lang, sir, kasi baka magtaka yung iba. Ganun ang mangyari.
Yes po. Sir, maraming salamat po sa pag-point out po. Sige po. Have a nice evening and then enjoy your weekends, guys. Until next time. Pete here from Academia.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you. Thank you.